Well, I want to do a little bit different update here on silver because, well, there's different angles to everything. Different angles. And I know the last step when they're talking about, like Ben Bernanke was talking about, he made a speech many years ago. You know, he's going to basically keep interest rates at zero, do QE and all this. The last step was devalue the dollar. And I've heard, for more than a year, about the Chinese letting the yuan appreciate, which thus, ergo, would make the dollar devalue. And I see these type of things going on. These rumors hit all the time. I don't know exactly when this is going to happen, but I want to state this. In the overall scheme of things, the people on the top, it got shrewder plans than you think. There's always been, like, if you look back, some years ago, there was like the battle, the Cold War between communism and capitalism. But capitalists that are that have monopolies, they basically are communists. And I know communists have basically, well, it was born in Germany. The idea of Karl Marx. It was actually a Jewish businessman that financed this guy, right? And the thing is, you just can't get into this, anti-Jewish attitude because of, you have a fact here and you have a fact here. I avoid that kind of garbage because it's like people go down a rabbit hole like Henry Ford did. He was probably a good person in his heart, and he gets into all these, I got it all figured out, But it's like there is really no difference between a guy that's running a company that's got a nice rigged system that wants to pay his workers shit than a communist over on the other side of the world. It's basically the name of the game. And long range is one thing that always stuck in my mind. It was Major Anatoly Golitsyn, who was a KGB defector, back in 1961, a major from Russia, KGB. His predictions have been very uncanny over the years, and he says what they're going to do is combine a type of hybrid communism, super capitalism together, and it's really just going to be for the few, the very few. And actually, if you look at the statistics, man, it ain't the 1%. It's not even a 1 basis point. It's like 100th of 1 basis point has about half the wealth of the world. It's really like only a few hundred people pretty much have about as much wealth as the rest of the people. It's really that lopsided. But there's another way you can look at that because nothing's really valued. If a peasant in China is farming someplace on his own land, they can say the land is only worth so much, but in reality, you can value things differently. So, it's kind of hard to mess. Sometimes these numbers are misleading. But it looks like China is vying for the have a world reserve currency. Actually, Russia is too. Everybody is, but they try to do things realistically in steps. But the problem with China is, it looks like they're in for a major collapse here pretty soon. They're in for the hard fall. What does that mean for gold and silver? Well, that could mean maybe they're buying less. But this is one thing I want you to really, really keep in mind, what I think is because there's a lot of different factors that influence the markets. But what I think is really going to come into play the most with gold and silver is the debt situation in the governments throughout the world and in the United States. How are they going to meet their budget commitments in the future? There's we've seen you forget about it because they hit the headlines like a year ago. You'll see Spain gets downgraded, France gets downgraded, 5 European countries get downgraded. And we saw the headlines back in 2011 in August. U.S. gets downgraded by S&P. Well, it's going to occur again. And when that happens, psychologically, what happened back in 2011, back in the summer, the markets went down. That's why I see a pump and dump in the equities right now in the way, because everybody's pouring into them. I think they're getting set up. If there's a devaluation, well, if there's a, not just a devaluation of the dollar, but if there's a downgrading of the debt or the outlook gets changed or something like that for the U.S. debt, that will be very, very bullish for gold and very, very bearish for equities. But do remember that the only way to get out of something is to actually roll up your sleeves and get out of it yourself. And one of the things that's preventing people from doing this, of the people who are really hardcore workers in the United States, is excessive regulation. No doubt. It's not even like, the Americans are, yes, I mean, there's a lazy people and there's people that are lazy and some people aren't lazy, but of the people that really want to produce and provide goods and services for a much lower price than the market goes, they're stifled by excess regulation and bureaucracy in the United States. That has really killed the competitiveness of the United States, not so much the labor rates of the United States versus the labor rates of China or something. So I want people to keep that in mind. But as far as like the metals going up, like silver and gold and things, the precious metals especially, it could very well go up and the equities go down. See, I don't know the timing on it, but all you need is an announcement or any kind of words out of like Standard & Poor's, Moody's, or anything that the outlook has changed for the U.S. debt, for the U.S. to meet its obligations. And it may occur because I think there's going to be a lot of infighting coming up fairly soon with the budgets that are for the next year, for the next fiscal year. I think, it's not even going to be fighting between Republicans and Democrats. It's going to be fighting between Democrats and Democrats, Republicans and Republicans, all over the place. And if they can't resolve it, the threats that were made back in 2011, in late 2011, by Moody's and everything, that they would downgrade the debt, they're going to come out and you're going to see that's going to affect the metals and it's going to affect the stock market. A downgrade in U.S. debt will cause the stock market to go down and the metals, the gold, to go up. Talk of a downgrade will do that too. It's not a guarantee that that's going to happen, but if you just look at how the situation's playing out, and I think it's coming up soon because the fiscal year is over in September 30th. So they're going to have to iron things out. See, this is why they had the problem back in August of 2011, because the fiscal year was coming up. And they've had problems at the end of the year, even though the metals weren't affected by, they're actually, Bernanke's statements affected the metals even more in December 2012, but they could have actually went up in December 2012 if Bernanke did not make those statements and there was problems in the budgets. But there were budget problems when, sequester was going to come about and all this type of stuff, and you want to hit the fiscal cliff. If they didn't resolve that, there would have been a major problem when they were going to come up to that fiscal cliff. So I think the government is, like, first off, they can't raise interest rates because that would break the government right there. But the government actually is spending way more than it should be. It's way beyond its means, and as that continues, there's only one thing that's actually going to come out to play in the longer run. It's going to be gold, because when the government can't meet its obligations, or when it's an outlook that the government may not be able to meet its obligations, that's bad for the U.S. dollar, and it's also bad for the equities too. So, but as far as China, vying for, world reserve currency, I don't think they're going to be able to do that right away. First off, they're not set up for it at all. Basically, they could say they're buying gold and everything like that, but there's so much going on. They don't have the banking system set up for it right now. I think that's a lot of talk right now. I know I've been hearing this shit for a while. I think eventually they're going to be one of the world reserve currencies. The dollar is not going to be like out of the picture. it's going to be one of the world's reserve currencies, and there's going to be other ones that have just as much weight as the dollar or be very close competition with the dollar. That's really what's going to happen, I think, in the long run. You're not going to see the dollar go away. So keep that in mind when silver and gold go way up and people tell you, oh, you're going to take fiat dollars for that? You know, I got so sick of that garbage way back when it was going up. And I'm just doing my own thing. People want to do what the hell they want to do. Fine. But I know the dollar's not going to totally disappear despite the debt situation and everything else. What they're going to probably do is they're probably going to default on some of the debt. But as far as what we're going to be using here in the United States, it's going to be the U.S. dollar. You have to realize the implications of not having a U.S. dollar. The elite actually lose complete control. Complete control. It's like they're not just going to replace it. Why would they replace it? They would still call it the U.S. dollar. They might change something, the structure behind the scenes. It's still going to be around. That's a fatal flaw of the silver and gold people. They think the dollar is going to go away absolutely, completely. The only way I see that the dollar can go away absolutely, completely, is if they had World War III and it was like the complete destruction of nations, utter chaos, and out of the ashes something came up again. But if that happens, you're going to have a hell of a lot more problems than worrying about the value of your gold and silver. So, just keep that in mind. I apply pure common sense all the way. And, I'm not listening to people that give, because I've been kind of catering to some of the conspiracy freaks out there a little bit. And I don't want to knock that stuff because I'm into the conspiracy stuff too, but there's some people that are into it so much that it's just wrong. It's ludicrous. It's so ludicrous. There's truth to that, but their conclusions are drama. We're not going to see the dollar go to oblivion unless there's World War III and there's like a total destruction of a lot of different nations, and out of the ashes you might see something come up again. And maybe that's in the plans too. I don't know. But realistically for now, when people get super fearful that the dollar's going to collapse to nothing because silver's going up to $75 an ounce or something like that, I'm not going to be afraid to sell. I know there's going to be plenty of people that are going to be saying, what are you going to do, take fiat? And I'm going to say, yeah. Because it really ain't fiat, because that's the currency we trade in the United States of America, and it's going to be that way until the United States of America ceases to exist, if that happens. So, I know better. And people can disagree with me on that, but it's really how it is. And, I'm sticking with my conclusion, and if I'm wrong, if the person wants to argue with me and they're wrong, well, you can't, it's like you put your head up against facts, and that's all there is to it. So, I'm not going to be afraid to sell when it goes up high, and I think it is going to go up high. When the naysayers against silver and gold, you ain't seen nothing yet. This was not the bull run when it went up. Gold went up to 1921, and silver went up to 47, 48. That was not the end of the bull run. It's going to go a hell of a lot higher than that. A lot higher. So, I know it's coming up.